So, you're in the market for a convertible. You've looked at a Mazda MX-5, the Escort convertible, and maybe the Rover MGF. But the world and his wife owns one of those convertibles. You want something a little different. Well, we've got two very different convertibles here today. First of all, this is the Minari Road Sport, 1.5 litre engine at a cost of around £15,000. And this is the Quantam H4, 1.9 litre, costing around £17,000. But what are these cars actually like to live with and to drive? Well, we'll find out today. The most important thing with the Minari is actually getting into it, and there's quite a knack. Easy with the hood down. That's the way to do it. Now, there's no doubt that the Minari is the car that you can have most fun in. The driving position is pretty good, the steering wheel's very big, and that actually obscures the speedometer. And you can find yourself cruising along on the motorway without realising what sort of speed you're doing. You kind of have to look down under the steering wheel to see what speed you're actually doing. But apart from that, everything else is nice and compact in the car, and it has a nice feel to it. So what are my final impressions of the Minari? Well, it's certainly a fun car to drive. The more you drive it, the more confident you become in it. On the downside, the interior trim is very disappointing. There are bits that hang off which should fit more flushly in the car. But the biggest headache of all is actually getting in and out of the car. It's an absolute nightmare. And as for ladies in skirts, it's a complete no-go area. So if you like the Minari, you like fun driving it as well, get your order in quick. Now, Keith, you've got this Minari, you've also got a Quantum as well. What was the reason that you decided to go for two cars like this instead of the usual mass-produced two-seater roadsters?
I think it's because of the individuality that the cars actually give you. It stands out a little bit from the crowd, but it's not too outlandish. So I think those are the reasons that really swayed me away from the likes of the MX-5 or the MGF.
Now, we've just driven it and I've had great difficulty getting in and out of it, and some of the trim in our particular car, the blue one there, doesn't fit very well. Are those some of the things you have to expect with buying this sort of so-called kit car? I
believe you do. You take it, it is an individual car, like you say. And yes, it isn't the most practical of cars. I don't believe they depreciate as quick as some of the mainstream cars. Okay, the MX-5 does tend to hold its value a little bit more, but it's fair to say that the Quantum has done exactly the same. But until we come to sell it, I don't know.
What would you say then to somebody at the moment who's considering buying a two-seater roadster of this sort of size and shape, between £15,000–20,000? They may be looking at the MX-5, the MGF, maybe even the Z3 1.9.
If they want individuality, I'd say go and buy a kit car. If you want to just blend into the crowd, go out and buy an MX-5 or your Z3. But I think these are far more fun, and at the end of the day, more in your pocket as well. We actually bought it, somebody had actually started to build it, and we bought it as a part finished kit, and then we had it finished at the factory, because obviously the standard's a lot higher than, I'm not actually a practically minded person that can go ahead and finish a car to this standard. So I went straight to Chameleon and they finished the car for me.
What would you say the drawbacks, if any, that you found with this car?
Like you say, not being mainstream, you do get things where maybe a little bit of trim comes loose, or you know, you might find something a little bit hanging off here and there. But if you're willing to just put those little bits back together, or take it back to the factory and say, look, you know, can you put this right for us? They're very obliging, and you know, you've got no problems at the end of the day.
Now, both the Minari and the Quantum basically start out as kit cars. If you're so inclined, you want to build your car from scratch, well, the manufacturers will supply all the bits and bobs. It'll cost you between £6,000 and £8,000, depending on what sort of specification you want. Then again, you can have a turnkey car, which will cost you an extra £10,000 on top of that. Now, the Quantam H4 I'm driving at the moment is nowhere near as rewarding a car to drive as the Minari. There's none of that gruff engine sound from the Minari. The engine in this is a 1.9 litre, basically a Ford engine that we've seen in Escorts and Fiestas for many, many years, although it has been tuned by Vulcan to give it some extra oomph. Top speed of about 120, 130 miles an hour, and 0 to 60 in about 8 seconds, same as you would expect, say, on a Fiesta XR2 at the moment. Inside, it is basically a Fiesta. I mean, if you stepped into this and then stepped into an XR2, say, they're exactly the same. And maybe that's the trouble with it. It's not quite unique enough to attract you, and especially considering the price of £17,000. Well, we've decided to come in out of the cold into the warm of this local pub now and have a quick chat with a couple of guys from Minari and Quantum. First of all, Sean and Mark. First of all, let's just run through the brief history of both of the companies. Minari, first of all.
Well, Minari was started in 1989. Myself and my partner, after we finished engineering degrees at college, we wanted to design and build our own car.
What about Quantum?
We started some 11 years ago. We started by myself and my brother Harvey. We're both engineers by background. I'm a chemical engineer, he's a mechanical engineer.
Now, you've both built kit cars for quite some time, and you now progressed on to the turnkey cars, and this is all due to the SVA. Perhaps you could just run through what the SVA is and why it's allowed you to build those turnkey cars.
For a number of years, kit car companies have been building fully assembled cars. It's been a very grey area, in fact, and it's something legislators have wanted to tidy up. And the way they've done that is with the SVA, single vehicle approval. Basically what this allows is anybody, any small company, to fully assemble a complete brand new vehicle instead of a very expensive and exhausting type approval process. Each individual vehicle is given a passive safety inspection.
And that's at a cost of only £165. So each customer will have to pay £165 to get the car fully approved by the Department of Transport and on the road.
And this gets them out of, or this gets you rather out of things like the crash testing, which is very expensive.
It does make it easier for us, certainly. There are benefits for the customers, though, in that the car is actually inspected by a completely independent person.
We do about 75% kit cars and about 25% turnkey cars. But what we see happening for the future, and I think both our companies are sort of the same,
Very similar.
and that we started off really as a kit car in the kit car industry, and we've both really risen to the top of the kit car industry in terms of quality and anything else you really care to mention. And we're both now looking at doing more and more turnkey cars. And I would like to see those percentages almost turn on their heads, maybe 25% kits, still the same overall number, but 75% turnkeys.
And what do you see as the lifespan of both of your cars, first of all, the Quantums? I mean, how long are they likely to last?
Well, being that they are made from glass GRP, glass fibre, which won't rust, that is a big advantage. I mean, there's no reason why anybody couldn't buy a Quantum and drive it as their only car that they ever drive. Buy it at 17 and drive it till the end of the day. It's just keep, every time you've done 150,000 miles or however often,
Change the engine.
Change the engine, that's right.
But certainly insurance is a lot less than a mainstream car.
I mean, about £100 I've seen quoted for fully comprehensive insurance.
We usually quote about half the cost of insuring the original donor car, which in our case is the Alpha 33. To insure an equivalent spec Minari, it's about half the cost of the original Alpha. So it gives you some idea of...
As a similar house is based around Ford XR2, XR3 parts, and generally will be something like half the cost again.
So what are my final thoughts on both the Minari and the Quantum? Well, we certainly had a great deal of fun driving these cars today. They've been enjoyable to get out, get the roof down and enjoy the fresh air. Both cars handle extremely well and they both have plenty of power. My main concern about the cars, though, is the fact that spending £15,000 and having the sort of quality problems that both the cars suffer from, the sort of problems that, say, TVR and Lotus had a few years ago, are very annoying. But those problems are not enough to put me off buying one.